everyone, welcome to the bonus episode for this week. We are doing, everyone's been asking us to do this.
No, they haven't.
People have been clamouring since the show started, and we're biting the bullet. We're going to do it
Nearly
finally.
700 episodes in. When are you going to do Tommy and Angela Harris as a character profile? The answer is now.
We're doing it now, so deal with it.
It's not even an April Fool because we're recording this on April the 1st as well. We're actually doing it, aren't we? Yeah,
but it's after midday.
That's true. We are the fools. It feels like we are definitely running out of main-ish characters, main adjacent, main tangential characters to discuss as our character profiles. At some point, we're just going to start redoing some of our old ones again, which we're over and done in about 5 minutes.
Well, listen, Michael, there are some... We started this, is it 13 years ago?
There or thereabouts.
And so there's been 13 years worth of extra stuff some people have been getting up to.
I know we have got some catching up to do as well, but I'm just saying ones like, Martha Longhurst, Ina Sharples, they could probably do with a little bit more love. But we're not here for them today. We're talking about Angela and Tommy Harris, and I don't want to downplay them right at the beginning of the episode, because I actually did quite like these characters. They arrived on the street in 2002, 13th of November, and they are kind of overlooked because they were only in the show for 3 years or so, not even 3 years. But they've it's the curse of number 6, isn't it? They lived at Coronation Street, number 6 Coronation Street, and that was the house that for many years, up until the Nazirs rocked up, was just a turnstile of different families and couples living in there. And yeah, this family came in, they did their bit, and then they went out, and then they were largely forgotten, weren't they?
Who are they? Who are we talking about? No, that's mean. They
well, is it the Hallises or is it the Nelsons? That's the big question.
They did have an exciting storyline.
I think they did. And I definitely rate. We've done character profiles of the children, Katy and Craig, before, so we're just going to mostly be touching on the parents today. I think putting them together in an episode is a better idea than trying to separate them out, because I don't think that there'd be enough to carry an episode if we just did one of them, particularly if it was Angela, I'm going to say. But yeah, together, I quite like these characters, and I think that obviously Tommy's exit was spectacular, and I think it's up there with one of the best murders on Coronation Street there's ever been. Outside of serial killers, I'm gonna say it's up there for me. But Angela never really got a chance to carry on much longer after then, and
really very many murders that aren't serial killers.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are.
All right, fine.
But no, I just think there are. Don't roll your eyes. I think there are. But no, it was a great exit for him. But some characters don't always need to stay a long time, do they? I wonder. Do you think there's a bit of a thing about if you only stay in the show for 2 or 3 years? And clearly there is, because this is how we started the episode. If you're only staying for 2 or 3 years, you're a failure. And is that an attitude you need to get out of? Is that actually enough for some characters, and it's a healthy lifespan, and off they go?
I think it would be better for the show if we didn't expect everybody to be in it further. Because let's be honest, there are very few characters that can really last without feeling as though they've overstayed their welcome, because there's definitely quite a few characters that have been in the show for many years who don't feel like they should be there anymore. Yeah,
exactly. We didn't have the Harrises on the street long enough to get bored of them, I would say. And you're right, they did have some really stonking storylines, especially at the bookending their time with the street.
These characters also could still be in it now.
Yeah, I think that they would fit.
They would fit in the show. They're perfectly fine. They're
just a classic, normal, working class, no frills. They're not kind of sexed up and...
Yeah, it's like a gruff man and a matronly woman.
Yeah, exactly. But still a tough woman, I'm going to say.
Well, yeah, I was trying to think of the word. Maternal? Fiercely maternal and protective. Those are the sort of core characters that Coronation Street always needs. Like, a couple that has that makeup in them.
Yeah. So we're going to run down their main stories today.
Well, hang on. We're doing this because it's the 20th anniversary.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Well,
of them leaving.
No, not quite them leaving. Well, 20 years ago this week, they were beginning to be on the way out. Tommy was dead, and Angela and Katy were in the midst of a cover-up, I believe. And so it was actually the 2nd of May 2005 that we said goodbye to Angela for the last time. But it was the finale of the Harris story 20 years ago. So that's why I thought that this week would be a good time to go over it. Does it feel like 20 years? I'm going to say, yes, it does.
Oh,
it doesn't. They don't, to me, feel like, they're certainly straddlers of old and modern Corrie, I would say.
It's funny to think
they don't fit in one or the other in my head.
No, I know, but it's funny to think that when we started the show, they'd only just 6 years before they'd gone.
Yeah, that's true.
Does that feel now more like a long time ago?
It feels like they definitely belong to an earlier age. But as I say, I think that they straddle the modern, darker, dare I say it, Coronation Street with the more traditional,
dark, yes.
classic-y Coronation Street that kind of came to an end-ish in the early 2000s.
Does the Harris family have the darkest story for any family?
They're definitely up there. Maybe that's a Patreon top 5 we need to do.
Darkest
family histories. Yeah, I don't know. Well, look, should we run down their vital statistics first of Angela and Tommy, and then we'll just crack on with talking about their storylines. So, as the lady, would you like to tell us a little bit about Angela?
Angela was born on the 18th of July, 1964. She got parents, as lots of us do, Keith and Shirley Appleyard.
Yeah, Keith Appleyard is another.
Was in it.
Keith was in it.
I liked him.
He's still rocking it in ITV3 Classic Coronation Street.
Craig.
Keith Appleyard was, I think, even when he popped up last year on Core Eliminator, I was like, oh yeah, who remembers Keith? He was a bit rubbish. He was naff. But actually, for the short, what was in it, a year period that he was in it, he was actually.
He did all right.
He wasn't a fun character, but I think he was very, very, very traditional and very stick in the mud. And he didn't like opening his purse. He liked to bargain, but he wasn't a skinflint. He was just very economical and just kind of sensible
Aware
and
of the
traditional.
value of money.
Yeah, very sensible and traditional. And because he took over and looked after Craig when he was left, the only Harris left on the street, and he's had a bit of a romance with Audrey. And yeah, he didn't need to stay in the street for much longer, but it's nice to revisit a character that you kind of look back and think, oh yeah, they weren't really anything, and actually quite enjoy them. I didn't need him to stay any longer. I'm hoping that he's in, for me, the same kind of category as I don't know, Teresa Morton maybe, who I don't really think I like her. Maybe when she comes into the street in a couple of years' time on ITV3, I will have a newfound appreciation of her. We will have to see. But yeah, Keith Appleyard, justice and recognition for you, sir.
Was Shirley in it?
Shirley not, no.
Okay, siblings, Lorraine and Pauline.
Also not in the show.
Married to Tommy Harris in 1985. She last appeared on the 2nd of May 2005. She was in 306 appearances and she is played by Catherine Hunt.
She was indeed. So this is quite interesting. She made 306 appearances, whereas Tommy, 238. But as you know from having a look at the notes earlier today, it really was Tommy who carried the main dramatic stories, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that if this was just a character profile of Angela Harris, we wouldn't be topping 15 minutes from what she contributed to the show beyond being a general background character, because Angela was a factory girl. She got a job in Underworld within a couple of weeks of moving into the street, and that's good. It's a bit like if you work behind the bar at the Rovers, or at least, when you had the full complement behind the bar there, or if you work at Roy's, you're going to rack up the episode appearances just by being there. And I think Angela, not to disparage her, she was uncontroversial. She was a good friend to Hayley. She liked having a laugh. She wasn't super serious. She definitely wasn't in the vein of, Janice or Karen down at the Gobby Machinist.
Is this going to sound weird if I say she reminds me a bit of Vicky?
Vicky who? Bitch Vicky.
Polish Wiki.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, Vicky, I can't remember what her surname was. The Polish factory girl. Yeah, she was just there. She
was
harmless.
She had a bit about her and you knew that if you crossed her, you'd be in trouble. But on the whole, she was just a nice lady.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of those 306 appearances were very much just being in the factory. What I did when I was researching this one, I opened up every single page on Coripedia that Angela appeared in.
You had 306 tabs open?
No, I didn't open them all at once. I opened them in groups of 5. That's usually my my way of doing this, and then doing a Control F to see how many times Angela appeared. Don't shake your head at me. It's a very thorough system.
Yeah, I know. I'm just astounded.
I'm dedicated to this podcast.
This is what AI was made for.
I know, totally.
But it can't do that. It can't do that, but it can make you a picture of her looking like she's from
Studio Ghibli, exactly.
Yeah.
No, so I opened up every single one, and I'm going to say, in a good 60-70% of those episodes, she was not in the synopsis whatsoever. She just appeared on the cast list. So she really was very much a background character.
I could do that.
What? Just be in it in the background?
Yeah.
No lines?
Well, give me lines. I'll do lines. I don't care.
Just don't get you to do any dramatic scenes.
I want to get paid for being a character, but I just want to be a background.
The thing I will say about...
They do that?
Yeah, probably. The thing I will say about Angela... Catherine Hunt really showed what she was capable as a superb dramatic actress in that last month.
Yeah, they were like...
Not that she was bad before, but they didn't necessarily give her the material to do it.
No.
They did occasionally.
Well, there's a few dramatic parts, wasn't there?
Yeah, but in the time between Tommy getting bludgeoned by a wrench, spoiler alert, and her being locked away in prison, she was excellent. We'll talk more about it when we get there, but I really rated her when I rewatched her again. I was very, very pleasantly surprised, and it does... I do think it's a little bit of a shame that that's the most that we got to see of that character, and could she come back onto the street? Yes, but there's no reason for her to. I don't know what Craig's up to these days. I mean, we had Ida Clough making a reappearance in Coronation Street in the late 90s after not been in the show for a long time, but so it's not impossible. I just don't think it's needed. But I really did rate her. I think she was a cracking actress. Just too small of a part for her. Tommy, on the other hand, husband. No, I'm not on the other hand. I'm not saying that he's bad. He was born on the 8th of January 1964, so they were just 6 months apart. Died 4th of March 2005 at the hands of his daughter Katy Harris. His mum was Jean Harris. I think she appeared on the show after he died. I think she came for the funeral. And yeah, he last appeared on the 7th of March 2005 because he hung around for a few episodes as a corpse. He was only in 238 episodes, as I said before, and he was played by Thomas Craig, which I think is a great name for an actor considering he's playing a character called Tommy and his son's called Craig. I think... I read this right on Wikipedia. He was actually born called Craig Thompson, and Thomas
Really?
Craig is his stage name.
What?
Yeah, and apparently a Sheffield Wednesday player, and this was his team, is called Tommy Craig. So his stage name was named after a footballer in his favourite team. Why not? You can do that when you have two first names as your first name and your surname, can't you? Obviously, their kids were Katy and Craig, who said that already. And yeah, well, let's kind of talk a little bit about what they did before Coronation Street. Catherine Hunt was in Coronation Street before appearing as Angela Harris. She appeared in 1990 in a non-speaking role in Nigel Ridley's secretary.
She was pregnant with Craig then.
Well,
He was born in 1990, so
quite possibly.
she was probably sitting down to hide the bump.
Yeah, so somebody went to the brewery to see what Ridley was up to, and she took them to him, and I think that was about as far as we got with it. She did have a couple of small roles. I think that was her first TV role. I think I found out, but she had then some other smaller roles on TV. She was in Children's Ward, classic. Brookside, Cold Feet. She was in Where the Heart Is for quite a while. Fat Friends, remember that? The also starring ex-Coronation Street Gaynor Faye, written by Gaynor Faye's mum, actually. No, I've not watched it at all. Thomas Craig, on the other hand, was a plumber before he moved into acting in the 1980s. I know.
Just like Harrison Ford was a carpenter.
Was he?
Yeah.
Didn't
And
know
Jesus. Before he got into the old religious gig.
Yeah, similar. Before Coronation Street, Tommy, had even had a couple of small roles on TV, including episodes of Inspector Morse, Peak Practice, Cadfile, and EastEnders. Yeah, so he's done the other soaps as well, but Corrie was definitely the role that
He
up
hasn't
until
done
this
the
point.
other soaps. Cadfile's not a soap.
No, EastEnders, I'm saying.
The other soap.
Yeah, the other soap. Another soap. Yeah, so up until Coronation Street, Coronation Street was his biggest role to date. But actually, and I bet you don't know this as well, his appearances in Coronation Street have actually been dwarfed by what he's up to at the moment. I didn't know he was up to anything, plumbing. But apparently he is.
He's the new James Bond.
No. So,
what is it?
I'll tell you when we get to
I'm
the
excited.
end.
Oh, I've got to wait to the end.
Wait until the end about what he's up to.
Does everyone else know?
Maybe. Some of them might do. So,
is he in Emmerdale?
No. Coronation Street was very secretive about this family when they were brought in, because this was the witness protection family, wasn't it?
Oh, you're giving it away.
It's all right. It's all out in the open now, and I think this is
blow their cover.
I don't know how many other soaps have done it. It seems like such an obvious thing to do.
It's such a soapy.
It's mega soapy. It's his dark secret. 101 really.
Yeah, isn't there a TV show at the moment that's just come out about? He's got the one who was in Happy Valley.
I know who you mean. Is that about witness protection, is it?
I think it is.
I think
there's something like 2,000 people in the country, also, I'm making that up completely, who are in witness protection at any one time. It just seems like such a far-fetched and fantastical
It totally does. Because the only time you ever hear about it is on telly.
Yep.
Because that's the whole point. You're not supposed to know if people are in it in real life. So it is totally a dramatic thing. I think probably like many things in life, I first learned about witness protection from Coronation Street. It might have been in the bill beforehand as well. But this is a real kind of eye-opener, highly dramatised, I'm sure, about what it must be like to be removed from your friends, family, life, hometown, and start another new life somewhere else.
I remember when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I think I got a little bit obsessed with the idea, very briefly, about what it'd be like to be in witness protection. And I wanted my job when I grew up to be the person that came up with your new life, because I thought literally you got to sit down and go like, right, he's an ice cream man, she's a dinner lady, and they're going to buy this house and they're going to be really into green, and I'm going to pick their names for them. She's going to be Esmeralda.
Of course, the best depiction of witness protection in TV is The Simpsons, when they moved to when they become the Thompsons in that Sideshow Bob episode. You remember the one?
Right.
And they got.
I remember it when I see it.
I don't want to recount the scene, but there is a great moment where Homer's being told that I'm going to call you Mr. Thompson, and he doesn't respond to it, and the guy's like, "Hello, Mr. Thompson," and Homer's just like,
I think I remember that.
It's a great scene. Anyway,
what an idiot!
Coronation Street, I don't believe, said straight away to the viewers that this family were going to be in the witness protection program. They said that there's more to them than meets the eye. They're a working class family shrouded in mystery. Everyone's going to be very suspicious straight away, and their story does not add up. And, taken on its own, without knowing that that's what the story would turn into, that's almost... I don't think you'd be able to necessarily guess from that, would you?
You would now. If you said that now on the internet, everyone would have worked it out in 5 minutes.
They might do, but quite often they'll have characters brought in like, oh, they got a dark secret, they got a mysterious past.
But what would have happened is somebody would have worked it out and gone, oh, I hope it better not be witness protection. Oh God, Coronation Street.
That's the problem. when you have social media and somebody's going to predict it right, aren't you?
Yep.
So it doesn't just quite.
It's 1,000 monkeys on 1,000 typewriters.
Someone's going to
say.
And
I count myself among those monkeys.
Those monkeys, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're of course not even called the Harris family when they came into the show. Nelson was their given name, and producer Kieran Roberts at the time said, "We're very excited about the arrival of the Nelsons on Coronation Street, not just because of their intriguing and dramatic family history, but also because the 4 superb actors who play the Nelsons are going to be a tremendous addition to the cast." Wow. And that was all we were left with. I don't remember at the time, and I certainly wasn't quite in the midst of all the Coronation Street publicity drives. I just switched on the telly at 7:30 and saw what had happened. But I think that would have got me interested. Catherine Hunt, around about the time when she was announced as playing Angela, said it's a surreal experience working on the show. I've been a huge fan since I was 18. It'll be interesting to see what viewers make of the Nelsons and their dark secret. So,
They've all been making white supremacist propaganda.
What was this dark secret then? Well, poor Angela was the reason that they had to go into witness protection. I'll do this, but you can.
I thought I was doing.
No, you can do 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just do the preamble to it. The dark secret was that she was a witness to a murder.
A what?
She saw someone do it. A murder. I think it was she saw somebody get stabbed or shot in a pub or something, I'm going to say.
Ooh, painful.
She gave evidence against the bloke who done it, called Tom Morton, and he, despite knowing that he and his family had a bit of a reputation, they were the, shall we say, the Gaskells of the early 2000s. They're the people you did not want to mess with. And
are they Mortons or Morgans?
Oh, Morgans. Sorry, Morgans. Mortons were who came later, weren't they? Who were also ones that I sometimes confuse with the Harrises, if I'm not thinking. The Morgans. Apologies. The Morgan family, particularly the brothers Andy and Nick, started this massive harassment campaign against the Harrises / Nelsons, Harrises they were back then, which culminated in their house being burnt to the ground, and the Harrises were like put on witness protection, moved to Weatherfield. They were in fear of their life, and where safer a place to move to than the crime-free paradise that is Weatherfield, Coronation Street, no less. So they first appeared on the show in 2002 and had some very secretive moving in scenes.
I don't understand why they went. So the family, this murder, she was working in a pub in Sheffield.
Yes.
So I assume this happened in Sheffield.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you move them to Manchester from Sheffield? It's like an hour and a half up the road. Why don't you move them down south? Or up in Scotland, or go to Wales, or go to Northern Ireland.
Budget cuts. The police can only afford an hour and a half's worth of petrol to transport you to your new life.
They're like, do you know how much a moving van costs? So, well, all your stuff burned down, so I guess you don't need that.
I do wonder, actually. Maybe they'd stick out more if they moved down south and they had a Sheffield accent.
Yeah, but they'd be like, that family's suspicious, aren't they? Do you think they've got a dark secret? Yes, they're northern. But don't mention it.
That's their only thing. They're just northern. That's a one and only dark, shocking secret. So, yeah, 2002, Gemma, over to you. Tell us about their first few months on the street.
Okay, so 2002, they move into the street, veil of secrecy. Everyone's intrigued. We don't see them for the first few episodes. Everyone's gossiping about what's going on.
They move in and they don't say hello to anyone. I think Blanche and some of the others are watching them and they can't give them a wave, but the Nelsons, the Harrises, just want to get into that house number 6 straight away. And,
like vampires.
Yeah, and then, in a very good move, it was a couple of episodes until we really saw much of them again. So we had this family move in, and we, the viewers, I think this is right, we're left kind of saying, oh, what's going on with that family that's just moved in? Now, if it was, with sort of many characters these days, sometimes they'll bring a family in, or a new character, and they'll have them for an episode, and then they will just drop them for a bit. I'm kind of getting that sort of vibe with Mick and Lou at the moment, you know?
Yeah, I know what you
they
mean.
came in, had a bit of a Barney with Emma and Chesney, and then that was it. We didn't see them properly again for a couple of weeks, but that just felt like the schedules didn't allow it. But this was to allow the mystery and the gossip to build about them, which was fab.
Do you think that there's a family living in Victoria Court who's on witness protection?
Could be.
Because they never talk to anyone, do they?
No.
That's like me. That's what I'd be like.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me. I don't want friends. Right, so Tommy applies for a job at the garage, but Kevin's got trouble trying to check his reference, which to me feels very much like the police are not doing a great job there.
Yeah, I mean, what do they do
you're
on witness protection?
Can you imagine?
Here's your name, here's your house. You sort the rest out yourself.
Just if you die, it's your own fault.
I'm not your mum.
Can you imagine if Kevin's like phoning up like the reference numbers? Hello, Weatherfield Police Station. Tommy what? No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I've just done. Oh, crap. Oh, I hope he phones back.
An outstanding employee, and I would certainly rehire him again.
For whatever job this is. What did you say you were? Okay, right, so he can't check the references, but he's like, look, you have the job. If you can fix his car on the forecourt, which he does, because just because his wife saw a murder don't mean he can't fix cars.
There is usually
no correlation.
No correlation between that. You're right.
Right, so they invite Tyrone and Kevin, say, come to the Rose with us, have a drink, and he's like, I cannot.
Yes, they were all just they were too scared to go outside, which does kind of make sense considering
they thought they would die.
The hell that they've just escaped from.
Yeah. Also considering they're literally only an hour and a half away from the people that want them dead.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
If they had a good pair of binoculars, they might spot them if they're looking in the right direction, let's face it.
It's not completely without the possibility that somebody in Manchester might know of someone who lives in Sheffield.
Yeah. I mean, they did turn up in the end, didn't they?
They did. It took them a while, but they worked their way across the country, didn't they?
Yeah, it makes me wonder whether the police thought, oh, yeah.
Oh, didn't think of that. I should have sent it to Brighton. Right, so meanwhile, Angela is still traumatised by the witnessing. And she's getting moaned at by the kids because they don't want to move away from their friends. She's too scared to leave the house. Eventually, Tommy forces her to get a job at Underworld, and she doesn't fit in very well. She doesn't want to talk about herself.
Yeah.
And so everyone sort of thinks she's a bit up herself, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the Underworld crew at the time, minus Hayley, I suppose, were just a hive of gossip, and if you didn't fit in, if you weren't one of the girls, then you were an outsider, and that would have made things even worse for Angela, because the whole point of witness protection, I suppose, or part of the point, is to try and fit into your new place and
not raise suspicion by being weird.
No, but then she couldn't help being weird because she, as we had said, has just witnessed a murder. So she was a little bit on edge.
So she injures herself on a sewing machine, I assume because she's so scared.
Probably.
Hayley takes her to hospital and Angela's like, you know what, I could have died of that sewing machine.
Thanks, Hayley.
I need to live life to the full again. She stops hiding away. Tommy comes out of his shell. And they start to integrate a bit more. So, he goes on Kevin's stag night, enjoys himself. Yeah. Then Tommy sees somebody assaulting Blanche on the street. He helps her and he sees the assailant off. But when the police come, he's like, oh, I don't know. I'm not helping you.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get involved with the police. He's got to keep his head down.
I think, I don't. Was there not something like there might be a mole in the police or something?
I don't think so.
Well, he obviously was suspicious of them for some reason, even though they're the ones that helped him escape.
Yeah, but he just really wants to keep his head down. I don't know whether
he probably thought if they start investigating, they might pull a thread.
How much do police from one place communicate with the police of another place? So would Weatherfield police have known about Tommy's backstory? I don't know.
Notoriously very poor at communicating with one another. Historically speaking, because that's why so many murderers got away, serial killers got away, not just in America but in this country as well. But I don't know whether that had improved. Also, the record keeping was not great until we really got computers
on the internet.
Yeah,
we had a bit of internet in 2002. They might have been dial-upping to each other. I suppose with Blanche.
That's just them checking.
People don't know. Our younger listeners have got no idea what that is. I guess if you've been a hero and you
don't want to be in the news or something.
Thing, yeah, exactly.
Don't know Weatherfield Good Samaritan Award. Thanks very much.
No, not at all.
No need. When is that?
He did his bit, and then
when is somebody going to get that award again? It's all gone to the dogs, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's cutbacks.
Nobody does anything good these days.
They got rid of it because of COVID. Everyone just thinks that they're weird. So Tommy goes to the police station to offer a description of this.
He decides to in the end. It's the right thing to do.
He won't do an identity parade or look at an identity parade. So everyone gets mad at them. The family comes under attack in the Rovers, and Angela eventually cracks and confesses. It did not take long at all to Hayley that they're in witness protection, and she says, "Don't tell anybody. It's a secret." And Hayley says, I can keep a secret so long that you won't find out I've got a kid until I'm about to die. So I'll take this to my grave.
Well, I can't remember exactly at what point Hayley tells Angela about her big secret and her former life. But
I'm in a sort of witness protection too.
I think if I was gonna confess my big secret to somebody, Hayley would be.
It'd be Hayley.
She's got a trustworthy face, hasn't she?
She's trusty.
I can't even remember whether Hayley told Roy. I think she possibly didn't.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Right, Kevin finds a wallet with the name Harris in it and thinks Tommy is a thief. And Tommy can't explain why he's got this wallet, so he gets sacked. Then he tells...
It had a union card in it that said Tommy Harris on.
Do you think the police would have gone, give me all your cards, seriously? Seriously, now.
He really wants his union support, does Tommy?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Proper
it
lefty.
could have protected him when he got sacked.
Yeah.
So he tells Angela, she says, look, I told Hayley about our past, and they have a massive row about it because they're all super upset.
There was an awful lot of rowing for Tommy and Angela. They weren't in the show long, but there was an awful lot of argy-bargy.
You've got to make the most of it, that's what I say.
Yeah, we said a bit about her character and that she was fiercely loyal and she could be bolshy when she needed to be. She was generally nice, but she wouldn't back down from a fight
if she thought she was in the right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you kind of had to be if you were married to someone like Tommy, because
he was a bit of a blusterer.
He was a proper caveman, wasn't he?
He's a bit like Owen.
Yeah, he was an alpha male.
Macho, masculine.
Yeah, and kind of punch first, ask questions later kind of guy. I mean, you see the similar kind of thing with Kevin and Tim Kevin. Even, but this was even more so. And I think that he wasn't supposed to be the most well-educated kind of chap, but he knew his way around the underside of a car, and that's all he needed really. But yeah, he would often resort to his fists first. It's fairly similar to Les Battersby in many ways, wasn't he? And I'm sure that comparisons were drawn between the two of them at the time.
Just fiery and
both fiery gingers with sometimes mouthy, would often say the wrong thing, would often say not the PC kind of thing. I'm sure that he was not a fan of the PC brigade himself. But
what, the woke mob?
Yeah, I don't think Tommy would have liked.
What is it? That. Is it not allowed to have someone else's wallet anymore?
Yeah,
woke.
But I think he's different to Les in that Les was supposed to be kind of a figure of fun, that we were supposed to laugh at him, and he would be kind of full of bluster, wouldn't he? And he'd be saying all these outrageous or offensive things, but he was also the butt of the jokes as well. And I don't think that was the same for Tommy. He was a bit more of a serious character, and not so dumb as Les, I'm going to say, but certainly in terms of Neil dragging Neanderthalness, they were
Neil dragging.
What is it? Knuckle dragging. I don't know who poor Neil is.
Neil, leave him alone.
Yeah, they were certainly
yeah
on a similar level.
Right, so Tommy buys Angela a mobile phone for Christmas so she can call her mum. No.
I think she was secretly allowed to.
She's not secretly allowed to, surely.
It's really tough. I don't know what all the rules relating to witness protection are, but I
cannot help but think that if this happened now, then everybody would be on social media going, "Oh, actually, this is not how it would work. You wouldn't do this, you wouldn't do that, nah. Which would be what I would be doing as well, because it's great fun to pick holes in things. I'm sure you're not supposed to, but how can they really expect you? But I think the thing is that it's not supposed to be permanent, is it? It's only supposed to be during a trial or something, is it?
I would imagine that once anyone gets sent down, you're probably pretty safe to go back to your original life, unless you have incurred the wrath of Harvey, who, as we know, has got many puppets outside of prison.
You can never escape his wrath.
Would you say, like, back in the day, you like the idea of witness protection? Like,
I love it.
I don't know. It probably is awful. But
no. Hang on, let me just clarify what I meant. I didn't mean I wanted to go on witness protection. I meant I wanted to help people go into witness protection. Like there's some kind of little project, like a little Barbie family that I could name and make them wear different clothes.
Some people do like the idea of just dropping everything and starting a new life, though, don't they?
Yeah, but people do that anyway. Like my nan and granddad were always like that. They'd be all over the place. I don't think they were in witness protection.
This is just like the police helping you out with that, maybe. If I could come with you, as long as I could take the cat.
No, because they know it was us by the cat.
Then yeah, sometimes, some days, maybe just a little trial period, possibly.
It would be really nice to have somebody help you, get a job and a new house and.
Well, they didn't get any help getting jobs, did they? They just turned up, and it turned out that literally right outside their doorstep, about 20 paces away, both of them just so happened to find a job.
Well, maybe the police got them that house for that reason.
Yeah, because as you know, you can't live in Coronation Street for more than 5 minutes without being inundated with job offers. It's a homeless it's a job seeker's paradise.
I want to be relocated to like the north of France in a cool little farm thing.
If you witnessed a murder and they were saying, "We're just going to put you somewhere. We can put you up north somewhere, put you in the Midlands." Things like
Put me up in
that definitely needs to be. These are really, really tough guys that are after me, but they can't swim. So with the channel,
and they get seasick. Can you imagine if we did witness a crime and they were like, right, we're gonna have to relocate you up north? We'd be like, yay! They'd be like, hang on a minute, what? You can't do your podcast anymore.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to do the podcast if we're on witness
What
protection.
do you mean?
Or we could just put on bunny voices and do it.
Hello.
I do like to do sometimes.
Hello, my name is Melanie.
Anyway, what our undercover act would be, we'd do an EastEnders podcast. They'd never guess. So, 2003 rocks round, and this was a big year for the Harrises. They made their debut, obviously, in 2002, and people were still thinking they're a little bit odd, a little bit secretive. What's going on with them then?
Only Hayley knows, and the crime family in Sheffield.
Yes, the Morgans. So Tommy comes clean to Kevin about the secret early on in 2003, and he gets his job back at the garage.
They're blabbermouths.
Yeah, you just gotta see who you can trust, can't you? That's all it is. So we got a couple of people knowing now. Angela, over the course of the first few months of the year, gradually becomes a bit more accepted by the factory girls, which is lovely.
Probably Hayley helped out with that.
Yes. And then you get to see a few stories over the course of the next few months that are, think of the dramas that you could get into if you're in the Witness Protection Act. So there's a photographer who turns up in the back garden one day, and they're really just snooping around the place because they want to try and get the dirt on Richard Hillman, who I think at this point was on the run. But Tommy goes to see this photographer, and he kind of nearly belts him one for sneaking around in the back garden when they think that people could come after them at any time. And then throughout all these photos going on in the press, Craig happens to be in the back of one that then goes in the paper. I think it was a picture of Gail, and Craig just happened to be walking out of the house.
But they don't get papers in Sheffield, do they?
Yes, they do.
Do they get Salford ones in Sheffield?
Well, I think it was probably a national paper.
Do you think it was maybe like the North Today?
Something like
Gazette?
That. Yeah. So Tommy and Angela are terrified. Craig's picture, even though it's in the background, is now broadcast for the North to see.
And he's a goth.
No, he's not a goth at this point.
Maybe that was...
He becomes a goth later.
When does he become a goth?
A little bit later.
But when? Is it before or after everyone dies?
Before.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So maybe that was him helping everyone out by going in disguise.
Maybe it was. Yeah. So they're kind of a bit worried about this. Now the Morgans are going to read the newspaper and come after us.
Morgan's such an evil name.
Tommy becomes a hero later.
No,
and this is
not again.
This is part of the acceptance of the family by the street, because he was one of the brave rescue team who fished the Platts out of the canal when Richard Hillman drove them into there. It was him, it was it Kevin, was it Martin? Yeah. They were in the chase
all
party.
Shouting.
Yeah.
The three shoutiest men on the street, all in one car together.
Yeah. Complaining that the temperature in the car was too hot.
Way behind anybody he pulled out in front of them.
Yeah.
But didn't check first.
He's a hero. Hooray, good old Tommy.
Read out what you called it.
Richard's Drive and Dive, I've written here in my notes. And that was nice because there's an awful lot of negativity surrounding Tommy because he was so such an arse. Because he was so stubborn and unaccepting and backwards thinking. I did like that they were able to show that he had a good side to him as well. He wasn't a nasty piece of work. He was just misguided in many ways.
He was just... Yeah, he just didn't care what you thought. He knew what he thought and he would never change his mind.
No, he was not one for changing his opinion on pretty much anything. No. So...
what must that be like?
Katy, meanwhile, daughter Katy, is hanging around with Tyrone. I think, did they date for a little bit? I can't even remember. But she ends up going to the pub and collapsing one day. Tommy thinks that she's drunk. Understandable, but it turns out that Katy has got diabetes.
Oh, God.
So they are a bit of an issues family at the moment, aren't they? Witness protection and diabetes. Tommy has to go and apologise to Tyrone. But then when he and Katy, Tyrone and Katy, actually start seeing each other properly. Oh, they do. Later off in April. I just remember things. Using Mike Baldwin's flat as a bunk-up spot, Tommy has to do some pretty heavy-handed parenting. I would be terrified of dating Tommy Harris's daughter. He's the ultimate scary father, for potential future father-in-law that you do not want to cross.
See, this is why we don't have guns in this country.
Why?
It's not because we understand the inherent risks and have decided against, the dangers. They outweigh the benefits. It's because we're all crazy and we'd shoot each other all the time.
Well, you say we don't have guns in this country, but actually, mid-April, a gun does turn up in
gun?
number 6. Yes, this is a hostage situation. We talked about this one just recently on the podcast, actually, on the Patreon episode.
Did we watch it?
We did watch it. So, Katy, the silly Billy, goes up to Sheffield on a weekend out and starts blabbing about, hey, I've got a new life in Weatherfield to her friends. Don't tell anybody.
They've got good shops there,
now,
haven't they?
Luckily for the Morgan family, unluckily for the Harrises, the Morgans they got ears everywhere. They're listening. And then not long before, I can't remember, what did I say their names were? Andy and Nick? Yeah, they turn up at number 6 Coronation Street and hold Katy hostage.
What a dick.
One of them played by, do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Steve Houston.
Tommy Orpington.
No. Eddie Windass.
That's it.
Yeah, the guy who played Eddie Windass was once a hostage taker. And the other one was quite funny. I remember he was sitting there doing an impression of one of Katy's mates with a fake cigarette in his hand, going, you know what Katy's doing down in Weatherfield at the moment. He did it better than me.
Tell everybody, Katy.
She's just, it must be really hard. And it's not from their fault, is it? I mean, it's hard for anybody to be in a witness protection program if you've got a really strong support network and a big bunch of friends in your original hometown. But for kids, it must be absolutely impossible. These days, it must be very hard to stop kids from communicating with phones, with social media, with email, whatever. But even then, they would feel so cut off, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Absolutely
no contact with anyone. And when you're that young, your friend group are your life. Mm-hmm. And it's just like they're gone. So Katy, does run her mouth off a little bit. And she pays the price because the Morgans come, hold her hostage, and more drama because obviously she's got diabetes. They're not letting her have her medicine, so her life hangs in the balance.
All of a sudden, she's got diabetes.
Yes.
Oh.
Story supporting diabetes. So Tommy bursts in. I think they get the police round, don't they? Tommy bursts in, ends up getting shot in the arm, but luckily he's hard, so he's fine. I mean, he's told he might lose it, but as we're probably going to be seeing with Betsy at the moment, it's fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to be all right. Meanwhile, Angela is worried that they're going to have to move again because these guys know where they are. But no, they're both arrested by the police. Andy's picked up a couple of episodes later. Angela says, I've had enough of hiding. Don't want to run anymore. The Morgans are locked up in the big house. Don't need a new identity. Let's just come out in the open. And this is the moment where not long after this, that they become Harrises. They go from Nelsons to Harrises. New name, back to their old name again, and that's that.
See, they couldn't arrest these two Morgans because they hadn't done anything yet, right?
They were a dodgy crime family.
Yeah, exactly.
They held people hostage. That's pretty naughty.
They hadn't attacked the Harrises. They knew that they were in danger, but they hadn't attacked them.
Oh, yeah.
So what my suggestion is that instead of spending and wasting all of our taxpayers' money, because God knows we need it, on relocating people and giving them new wallets or whatever, we should just tie them up, all these families that are in danger, and stick them on a pier or something, and then let the villains know and see what they do, and then arrest them for that.
Oh, okay. Just
when they come to creep along.
Use the families as bait.
Yeah, use them as bait. Do you not think
that's a very ethical thing to do? I'm going to say.
Well, I say if I can sell it to people as a cost-saving measure.
So the funny thing that I read about this story with the hostage situation was that at the time it was reported in the tabloids that this was directly in response to the kind of the sex and violence stories that was doing so well with EastEnders at the time. I mean, nowadays, people being held at gunpoint, 10 a penny in Coronation Street. You see a gun, so what? Who hasn't got a gun on Coronation Street? But yeah, back in these days, when was it? 2003, I think we're in at the moment. This was actually quite shocking, and yeah, apparently Coronation Street trying to step up to what had been set by the other soaps. The Mirror had an article that I found that said Coronation Street is going to have to be cosy no longer. The bosses have realised that it has to come bang up to date with adult stories to be able to compete with EastEnders, and I think that's a lesson that Coronation Street are still learning now, isn't it?
I think it's not cosy at all.
It's not cosy.
We had a conversation, didn't we?
Yeah. Coronation Street is not a cosy place anymore, and maybe this is where it started. Maybe I don't think it was quite so much wall to wall police and hospitals back then as it is now. But if you want to know the source, maybe this was it. Maybe it was.
Sally's mad, isn't she, about this? Because
Yeah,
she thinks they bring danger to the street. What about Rosa and Sophie?
Exactly. I mean, these were the neighbours. Sally were their neighbours, wasn't she? And so she's not too happy. But everyone else takes pity on them and raise £52 in a whip round. So that's quite nice.
Wouldn't even buy fish and chips
Get a
now
couple of
for
pizzas.
everybody, would it?
Yeah. So Harris's have a proper housewarming party. Factory girls present them with a nameplate for the house done hiding, which is great. Reminds me, do you remember that Wallace and Gromit at Christmas, and the police officer, when he's retired, he's got a badge that says done nicking.
What?
Clever stuff.
Yeah, what? I just don't. Yeah.
They didn't actually use it. It was just a joke plate.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the origin of it? It's done.
Dun Roman, isn't it?
What is that? Is that a real place?
Dun Roman is what you put on your
I
house.
know, but what is it referenced? You can't just put done on the front of something.
You can. Once we've finished Coronation Street, we'll get a new house plate.
Done yakking.
Done yakking, yeah, exactly. Let's get one now, preemptively, so it's ready to put up
ready
that last
for the
episode.
celebration.
Yeah, we'll never end. Don't worry about it. So in April, here's just a different news story. Nothing to do with the show itself, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Tommy Harris, got beaten up by Portsmouth fans. Typical Portsmouth fans. We're allowed to say that as Southamptonians. So
we would never.
As
do
I
that.
said, his team was Sheffield Wednesday, and they're at an away match.
He hasn't learned, has he, to keep himself in hiding?
No, I know. They're at an away match at Fratton Park. Is that the Portsmouth Stadium? And he got beaten up by some angry Portsmouth fans when Sheffield Wednesday won.
Did they win?
Yeah, but ever the gent, Craig declined to press charges.
What a strange aside.
I know. I was just doing a bit of old school. I just did a news search from anything that was going on with these actors back at the time, and I found that. So there we go. Over summer, then, Tommy starts to suspect that Katy is seeing a boy. How old was she this time? 15, 16, maybe. She must be 16. She was 16, yeah, because this was when she started her relationship with Martin Platt, who was, I'm going to say 35. No, older than that even, 37, 38 maybe at the time. So obviously a very, again, controversial. That was the violence, and this is the sex, isn't it? This is the spicy storyline of 2003 that was definitely very controversial and unsavoury, I'm going to say.
This is not illegal.
No.
In this country. Should it be? Yes. I think so. But
it was funny because
the age of consent is 16. So I guess that anyone could date anyone who's 16 or older.
Again, I think Katy was fairly mature for her age, wasn't she?
It's creepy when
I'm just going to say she was. If I'm like comparing her to Sarah Louise, she seemed a bit more grown up, and maybe that was what Martin liked. And so you did get scenes with them together, and you didn't think, oh yeah, this is perfectly normal. But I think Coronation Street did a fairly good job of not making Martin out to look like an utter, pervert. That wasn't what the story was about.
Why?
Because you had, why indeed? I think everybody knew that this can't end well, that there is a problem here. But you did have characters like Les Battersby going, "Oh, you're nonce, Martin." And he was supposed to be being unreasonable about it.
That's so weird. It's clearly completely wrong.
It is. It really is.
And she was still in school.
Yeah, she would have her school uniform on. It was really gross and
weird.
What
on earth have they got to talk about? What on earth did they have in common at all? It's bizarre.
Yeah, I know.
And they only did this because they wanted to create conflict between Martin and Tommy because they were friends.
Yeah, that was the main reason. But I just wanted to say that Martin didn't come out of this story. being a total, outcast villain.
But
like
this is
he
one of the
survived this
reasons
story.
why I hate this character.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable.
He's a predator.
Yeah, but like you said, really the juice of it was Martin is Tommy's mate. And so, and little does Tommy know what's going on behind closed doors underneath the covers.
If they just desperately wanted this without having all of the, the clear undertones of what we're all thinking, why didn't they just say something like, oh yeah, she's actually 20, but we had to say she was 16? They could have done that. It wouldn't have made any sense, but it makes more sense than making Martin.
She'd have to really be undercover, like, I've got to go to school.
Yeah.
To really keep up the act.
Why not?
I'm partway through a degree when my mum saw somebody getting murdered.
You screwed up your GCSEs, go back to school. Well, I mean, it was just, it's such a bizarre decision.
It was very, very icky.
Wonder what would happen if they did this now.
Yeah, it lives alongside, the Jamie and Frankie story when they started dating, despite being kind of mother and son, but not really.
Yeah, but that's different because that's like, this is like, oh.
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, no, it was. But yeah, it did cause a lot of interesting drama, and it, like you said, Tommy had such a short fuse. And when he finds out via Angela that Katy has confessed that she is indeed seeing someone and they're sleeping together, Tommy is on the warpath to find out who this guy is and break their neck. He thinks it's Tyrone because they'd been seeing each other beforehand, punches him. That doesn't go down well with Katy or Angela, obviously, because they think he's setting a bad example to Craig. So
do you think, was Tommy's plan just like punch every man on the street until one of them confesses?
I think so.
Good idea.
He's a bit like... I'm just giving all the references to the American cartoons here. This is like the Russell Crowe fighting around the world.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like, punches his directors and he he fights his directors and he fights his fans. Like, Tommy, he was very handy with his fist.
And he's got a little tugboat.
Yeah, it probably does. So Tyrone says, look, honestly, I'm not going out. I think there was a point when Tyrone was like covering for Katy and agreed to pretend to be her boyfriend so that she could keep on dating Martin in secret. So Tommy realises though that he's made a mistake at this time. He invites Tyrone round to number 6 for afternoon.
Well, he thinks they are dating.
Yeah.
And so he tries to make up because he thinks that's her boyfriend.
Yeah, sorry, yes, that's...
And he's like... He's really trying to embarrass them.
Yeah.
And then he threatens Tyrone.
Yeah, he says that I'll break your legs.
Yeah.
Break your neck, break your legs, break whatever.
I'll break you from one end to the other.
Family. Yeah, I'm very protective and loyal, me.
I'm not very good at the middle. I can do the ends because they're more brittle.
Angela and Tommy unwittingly try to matchmake Martin with Sonia in a story later on in the year. Sonia's was just one of the random factory girls that comes in for a short stint and is never heard of again. And little do they know that the person they're trying to set up with poor Sonia is actually going out with their daughter. They are knocked for 6 about a few weeks later when Martin and Katy come clean with them about the relationship. They realise we can't keep this a secret anymore. We must celebrate our love. It's too great. Tommy obviously calls Martin a pervert. I wonder what he does. Duff punches him to the ground and tells Katy that she is banned from leaving the house, even for school. So he goes proper old school medieval groundy on her. It's like, you are going to be the princess in the tower here. I am You're not going to school. I'm not letting you out of my sight.
Don't need to go to school. You've already done it. Remember, you're 20.
He was such and again through this he would often come across, even though you could kind of relate to things and see it from his point, he was portrayed as the bad guy. He was portrayed as the unreasonable. Didn't want to think about it. Didn't want your 16-year-old daughter to go hang around with a 30-year-old man. Exactly. It's totally weird. But like I say, Tommy was seen as the one who was overreacting, and he. I suppose it was a case of his heart's in the right place. But maybe he should have tried to talk to his daughter and explain to her why this really isn't a good.
Got no idea how to solve any problem except with
hitting it.
you can't hit the 16-year-old girl, so you lock her in the tower.
Yeah, that was it. That was exactly it.
I mean, really, I'm thinking that we're uncovering that Tommy is the Bowser of Coronation Street.
So Martin tries to get in touch with Katy and texting her. Tommy just stamps on her phone.
That's exactly what Bowser would do.
Totally. Then she one day she manages to escape and goes to see Martin, and Tommy just like manhandles her away from him, calls him a kiddie fiddler.
He is.
Literally carries her.
What?
No, I've just. But yeah, you can think it, but again, his way of reacting to the situation, not necessarily.
I'm not
you could punch
physically
somebody,
able to beat up a man, but if I had a 16-year-old girl,
would you knee him in the ghoulies?
I would have a good old pop at it.
But
he wouldn't like it. Martin wouldn't like it if Tommy started dating Rosie. How old was Rosie at this point?
Oh yeah,
12.
yeah.
Old enough.
Young enough. Yeah. Anyway, look, Katy, who she's the victim here, isn't she? She's being in some way preyed upon by Martin.
She's being groomed,
and then also completely abused by her father. She thinks the only way out is by scoffing a load of sugar and biscuits and cakes to try and get herself hospitalised so that she can see Martin.
Poor girl.
Because he's a nurse there. Was he a nurse there at the time? I can't remember. Anyway, she gets out of hospital and decides for herself that she's going to shack up with Martin.
I'd report him to the hospital.
Tommy is like, I don't
even think it would work.
He gives up. Tommy says, I'm washing my hands of you,
Can't
daughter.
bother with this.
If you're going to carry on this life and you're going to carry on going out with Martin, sorry, you have brought shame to the name that is Harris. I'm having nothing more to do with you.
I'm going back to Nelson. And I'm so ashamed of you.
and so, yeah, and that's another very, very cavemanish, for lack of a better word, reaction, isn't it? He literally can't have a conversation about it. He can't process what's going on
deal
here.
with it.
So if he can't lock it away, he's
skills.
throwing it away. And so poor Katy is like cut off from her family, and obviously knowing what Tommy's like, he's saying, Craig, you're not having anything to do with your sister anymore. Angela, you're not having anything to do with your daughter anymore. Like, I'm the man of the house. This is the decision that I'm making. Yeah, I mean, Angela's very much a piggy in the middle of all of this. She tries to get Katy to come home, but Katy's like, no, I'm not going back home where my dad is.
Martin's so much better than any other men.
I forgot that this would end up turning into an episode where Gemma just gets every opportunity.
I just can't understand.
I
understand. Look, there are certain men who could easily turn the head of any 16-year-old girl, right? Because they're handsome and rich and charming.
Yeah.
But Martin Platt, shouty little Martin, no.
Yeah. So,
I wouldn't even put my dinner down for him, let alone leave my family.
We all like different people, don't we?
We all like different people, but some people like kiddie fiddlers.
Craig wants to move into Katy's room because she's got the better room at home, and Tommy's like, yeah, that's fine, she's dead to me.
Oh my god.
So Craig gets a bit of an upgrade there. Angela, again, she just tries to arrange a mediation meeting between the two of them, and between Katy and Tommy, and then Martin comes along as well, and the Rovers. That obviously doesn't work. Les winds Tommy up by saying, tell you what, I'd have punched Martin by now if this was me.
Yeah, I wouldn't put up with that.
Totally, Les and Tommy cut from the same cloth here. Meeting breaks down. Tommy has a pop at Les for trying to interfere in his life. He and Angela sleep in separate rooms that night. Because,
they've got a spare one though, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's all good. Angela then starts having to see her daughter in secret. Poor Angela through all of this, because she's obviously not happy with her going out with Martin as well, but she wants to mediation. She wants to talk this through properly. She doesn't want to lose her daughter.
I don't suppose...
No, neither does Tommy, but he just can't comprehend any other outcome.
I don't suppose we really thought about this at the time as being abuse, but it really is, isn't it? Like, and the women of the house trying to placate him and manage his emotions because he can't deal with them himself.
He was totally controlling of her.
I know, but I think the way we talk about and understand abuse is sort of really improved.
Yeah, it's definitely evolved in the last 20 years.
In society in general, and definitely I know I've learned a lot more about it from stories like Yasmin's and things.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever would have said this is abuse before, but it clearly is, isn't it? They're all terrified of him, but I think all of us, well, many people might have backgrounds or family lives where they might recognise a bit of one of their parents in the way that Tommy acts, and it felt very normal.
It did, and I still think they did a pretty good job of not or out and out villainising this character. He wasn't a Jeff.
He's not like
he
a Jeff.
wasn't a Charlie Stubbs.
He wasn't being portrayed like that, but he is clearly the same sort of person, which is really interesting. But I do think that I don't think it would be out of Coronation Street's wheelhouse to have a character or a situation like this now. But I just think the discourse about it would be very different.
I think because he would, go down the pub with his mates and have a good time and
rescue
also
people from lakes.
Rescue people from canals.
Yeah.
But because a lot of people understood why he was so mad.
Yeah, that's true.
It was like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on Team Tommy in some way here. And I think that's how they managed to keep... being out and out, villain. Tommy Harris was not a villain.
We'd say something like, "Oh, he's very heavy-handed," or he's really mean and angry and things. And I just also think it's really important to not villainise people for using incorrect terminology or not saying, "Oh, that's abuse," when it clearly is, because it's difficult sometimes. Because we're not dealing with. Everyone's dealing with their own family background, which might make things complicated to recognise what abuse is. But we're also dealing with millennia of men acting like this in their families because they were the head of the house and they got to say whether, women only just got the vote 100 years ago. The men would have told them what to do. Yeah. They wouldn't have been able to even go out without a man. Like, women having access to public toilets is relatively recent. Women couldn't go out in public life for thousands of years because there was nowhere for us to go to the loo. So the fact that this guy is like so controlling and abusive, but people didn't even recognise it, is just like left over.
I see a fair
the
bit
patriarchy.
I see a fair bit of Tommy in characters like Len Fairclough as well, for example. Yes. I imagine that it had Len been in the same situation, if he'd had a daughter who had been, taken away or entered into a relationship with a man twice her age, he would have absolutely done what Tommy was doing here. He would have punched first.
Be controversial and rag on another character that I dislike, everyone loves. Tim, remember when Sally was being stalked and harassed because she was the mayor? He just said, "You're not the mayor anymore now. I ban you from being the mayor."
Similar.
And also, but imagine if somebody went after Faye. Tim would have done exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
At certain points in his life, I think he's mellowed definitely now, but he was definitely a bit of a gruff, roughy-tufty. By that I mean abuser at certain points. But the thing is that you can have have abusive behaviour towards somebody and not be an abuser.
Yeah, you can show abusive traits.
I mean, maybe you can't. Maybe that's a distinction that shouldn't exist. But there's definitely patterns of behaviour that are more dangerous. On the whole, he's a good egg,
isn't he, Tim?
Yeah, right. If you say, I mean, he looks like one. Oh, that's mean.
Anyway,
that's just a joke.
Everything is breaking down with this family because of the relationship. And Katy, like I said, is being visited by Angela in secret. Tommy's just literally banned the mention of her name at number 6. Oh, and when he finds out one day that Angela's gone into Katy's school for a career evening, he storms in, threatens Martin, who's there with her, drags Angela home, and just can't deal with things, just cannot deal with his family rebelling against him here, I suppose. So next day Angela walks out on him and she goes to stay with Martin and Katy.
Everyone's just slowly moving the family from one house to another.
Is this tacit acceptance of Martin and Katy's relationship, or does she care about her own relationship with Katy so much that she didn't want to risk losing that, so had to go along with it?
This is the trouble, and we've been in this situation where somebody is in a relationship which is clearly wrong, and you know that it's going to end badly, but what you have to do is support the person, not support them in the relationship, but be there for them when you know inevitably it all goes wrong. And if you alienate them or you make the partner think that you're threatening, then you've got no chance of helping them when they need you.
Yeah, and I think Angela probably would have tried to explain this to Tommy, but that was too much for his little brain to understand. She tries to make up with Tommy, but they just end up arguing again. Then she tells him, right, you're going to go this time. He does. And she even tries to ask him back after a little while. And he's like, no, I'm giving up. Like, literally, his whole family has collapsed over this relationship between Katy and Martin. This is what it was like. He starts to turn to drink. Kevin fires him because he can't fix up cars properly if he's swaying about and slurring.
You've got to close one eye to see what you're doing.
This kind of comes to a head towards the end of the year when young Craig, who's seen his family just disintegrate over the course of 12 months, decides to take it upon himself to cut Martin's brakes, because in his eyes, Martin was the one that started all this when he took Katy away from the family. So he cuts Martin's brakes. I think Martin's got his car at the garage at this point. And then Martin goes happily driving off. Craig tells Tommy what's happened, and Tommy's like,
We can't
We can't do that. Punching, fine. Dragging away, fine. Cutting someone's brakes, I think we're going a bit too far here.
They could find out.
Especially as Craig's the one that's done it. Tommy I think the scales fall from his eyes a little bit here and realises, oh my gosh, I've made my behaviour, my attitude towards this man has made my son do something that could wind up in his death. So there's a brilliant car chase scene where Martin's driving down the road. Tommy's like pulling up beside him. Craig's there in the car as well. Tommy's kind of shaking his fist at him and trying to get him to say, you need to slow down. Obviously Martin, who's been harassed by this guy for the best part of 6 months, is like, what on earth is he doing?
Martin's like, he's saying something like he's gonna break my face or something. Break
anyway,
something of mine.
Cut a long story short, Martin ends up crashing into a wall here. Tommy's the hero again, drags Martin away from the car just before it explodes, and he and Craig decide to stick to the story that the only reason they were chasing Martin is they saw some brake fluid leaking from the car. That's how they knew something was wrong, you see. Angela thinks Tommy's a hero. Katy, on the other hand, thinks there's something a little bit suspicious here and reports Tommy to the police. The way that he's been treated all this time, she's like, she can't trust the word that comes out of his mouth anymore. He's interviewed, he's released on bail, but obviously Craig is left with the guilt that he nearly could have killed somebody here. When Martin wants to speak...
Not just anybody.
Well, Martin Platt. Martin wants to speak to Tommy about what happened, and then Tommy confesses to Martin that... Well, no, confesses isn't the right word because it's a lie. He says to Martin, yeah, your brakes were tampered with, and it was me. Craig, though, is so full of guilt because of this. He goes to see Martin and say, no, actually, it was me that did it. And Martin decides, because he's just a good egg, to cover for Craig. He says, look, let this be the end of it. I don't need the hassle here. I don't want to see a young
daughter. You nearly killed me.
Yeah, I took your sister away. I've been responsible for all the drama and heartache that's been going on at number 6 this year. Even Stevens, let's call it quits. This is over with. And just to make up for the end of the year, Tommy and Angela are reunited. So going into 2004, although Martin and Katy are still seeing each other, which Tommy's not happy with, at least things are calmed down a little bit. So much so, in fact, that 2004, we really didn't have a whole lot of Harris action going on. This is their middle year, and even though the episode numbers were, were largely in line with the year before, I think, they were mostly just, I think, in the background of Katy's stories. They didn't have anything really shocking to deal with, did they?
No, it was pretty quiet. The main drama was that Craig and Rosie got together, and so Angela's like, "Can you talk to him about not having any
the birds and the bees,
little budding Rosies coming along?" The Harrises are a lot more supportive of this relationship
than the Websters were. Sally was absolutely
Sally
disgraced by the fact that Rosie may well be being deflowered by Craig. They weren't having sex at the beginning. I think that's the point of it.
I think she think they're too rough, this family.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not beneath her, and so when she finds out that Angela doesn't mind, they have a massive row.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Katy and Martin split up. Because it turns out that she knew that Todd was gay and didn't tell Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah being Martin's
daughter.
Well, stepdaughter.
And so that ruined her life very briefly.
Just for a little bit. Tommy was thrilled with this.
Tommy's very happy.
This is what he's wanted for the best part of a year. This relationship, which he can see is doomed and very creepy and weird, is finally over. Katie's seen the light, so he thinks. But yeah, only temporarily.
It doesn't take long until they're sort of hanging around each other again. And when Tommy finds out, he storms around to Martin's flat, declares war on him. Eventually, he cools down long enough to help them move back together again, but he's kind of matured a bit because he's like, Angela, it's hurting me inside, but I've learned not to turn the hurt outside.
Yeah, I think he saw what it would be like if he was completely...
We just had a preview.
Yeah, last year, his family
Ruined
falling
his whole
apart.
family.
He doesn't want this to happen again, so he has to begrudgingly go along with it.
Little does he realise that it will definitely happen.
Yes.
So, Katy, for some reason, even though she's got the love of a good man, and he's obviously really supportive of her studying at school, because she's a school girl that he's living with, she flunks her exams.
Spectacularly, yeah.
Really badly.
She really does badly in her AS levels.
Angela persuades her to lie to Tommy, tell him she got straight A's, and he gives her a cheque for 200 quid, and she feels quite guilty about that. I don't know how she gets out of... I think maybe...
I can't remember.
She gets out of not having good exam results by just killing herself.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
pretty much. You get caught up in that line. No way out.
A couple take pity on Chesney when he's left alone by Les and Scylla. But, other than that, I don't think they get involved too much.
No, not really.
Everyone feels sorry for Chesney.
Poor little Ches at this point. Yeah, he was living with Les and Scylla across the street, and they were far more interested in each other and fulfilling their carnal desires than looking after poor Chesney. And yeah, I think they go off on holiday. Chesney's left alone, and he goes across the street to Angela and Tommy. And this was a nice kind of rare moment of
just them being
a good normal family, and they let him in, and Tommy was good to him, and it was little moments like that showed that Tommy wasn't a total bad guy. He had a heart in there, and he was just... His family got into scrapes and he didn't know how to deal with them, but he could be a good dad, and the loyalty and care that he shows to Katy and Craig just came out quite nicely with looking after poor little orphan Ches.
The family go through money problems. Mm-hmm. Tommy loses £78
That's a
to
lot
Mike
of money back in the day.
in a game of poker. No, this was 2004. I'm just going to point out here that Coronation Street used to have a lot more realistic money issues than it does now. 78 quid to a working class family is a lot of money to lose when you're already in strife. These days, it would be like, to £10,000. I've lost it. What's this? A scratch card? £20,000. Oh, that's better than I was before.
Tommy did come out better than Fred did from this particular poker game, because this was the one where he lost his... I think it was his car and his business to Mike.
Right. But he was rich.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Coronation Street, can you imagine them having a story where somebody's broke because they lost 78 quid now? No, they wouldn't. They just don't do it. The nearest we get is Gemma and Chesney, and they can still afford to front up for a bloody ski trip. For goodness sake, can you imagine that happening?
True.
No.
Anyway.
It's not realistic. I just wanted to point that out.
No,
when I read that, and earlier on when they give Angela 50 quid and she's touched.
Oh, with the rip round, yeah.
Like, that's like a normal amount of money for somebody at that time to be really thrilled with and be able to do something with.
Yeah.
Obviously, inflation has gone crazy now. Like I said, you literally probably couldn't buy fish and chips for 4 people for 50 quid, depending on where you are. Definitely couldn't down here. But let's go. But have they jumped the shark now to the point where they can't go back to this anymore? Because it does sound comical when you say £78, because we're talking now, Coronation Street, people, Jenny gets 60 grand, but she owes Carla 250 grand, and,
it's upping the stakes, and how do you back down from that?
Yeah. So anyway, the family buy Craig a computer for Christmas.
Scrimping and saving.
And everyone accuses Angela of stealing the factory Christmas party money, which I think ITV does that every year now. It turns out it's just stuck down the back of a drawer.
Is that what ITV say as well?
Oh, look, we found some more money. Angela...
been reported in the press that we're being misers.
Yeah, but we've just Angela...
We just found it again.
Yeah. She's pretty upset that she's been accused of stealing, but when she didn't, but they eventually persuade her to come to the party, and they all make up in the end.
It's fine.
And then at the end of the year, Angela tells Katy, "Oh, Granny, your grandma, she got herself pregnant, so Grandad would marry her."
Yeah, she plants a little seed in young Katy's head, doesn't she?
With no expectation or of...
She doesn't tell Katy in the thought that she would do it. I think it was a funny family anecdote
Isn't it
that
funny?
she was sharing. But it gives Katy an idea
Do you think she was like...
of how she can keep that Martin on her arm.
Do you think she was like going, yeah, the men in this family have always been emotionally stunted?
Yeah, exactly.
Pop only married Grandmama because she was up the duff.
So 2005 comes round, and this is the final year of the Harrises. It's where it all goes wrong. And it starts off, maybe this was like an omen at the beginning of the year, because this is when Craig and Rosie go goth, and this was hilarious. This isn't a Craig character profile, but just to see Tommy and Angela's reaction to this was hilarious. They thought it was the silliest thing. You know, Craig there with his big Matrix-style trench coat, dyeing his hair black.
Black nail varnish.
Tommy and Angela think it's funny, but, you know, Tommy draws the line when Craig puts black nail varnish on. That's the thing, because, you know, nail varnish is girls, Tommy says.
Well,
and then when he gets his tongue pierced, that's the end of it, as far as he's concerned.
My nan was Catholic, and I painted my nails black once, and she hated it. She made me take it off. She said it was satanic.
I think that the Harrises were Catholic. I'm pretty sure Angela was.
I think that maybe Catholics don't like black nail varnish.
Maybe they don't. So Tommy's reaction to this was confiscating Craig's stench of death concert tickets. But the kind of the sting in the tail here, the kind of the light-hearted end to the story, is that Angela pulled out pictures of Tommy back in the 80s when he was being a bit of a punk rocker.
Can
and
you
it showed
imagine?
that he was, quite one for dress up himself following the latest trend. So Tommy's like, oh yeah, fair dues.
Also, Craig gets his tongue pierced.
I said that. I said he gets his tongue pierced as well. So I think I did. Katy, meanwhile...
Craig could be pregnant, we don't know.
Katy gets secretly pregnant mid-January. It doesn't take long between this revelation about Grandmama and her getting up the duff herself.
Well, she's very fertile, being a young woman.
She doesn't take her pill. And she decides, right, I'm going to be a mum, I'm going to live with Martin happily ever after, don't need to go to university.
Don't know how I could now anyway.
This obviously leads to a very heated argument between her and Tommy. The truth about the baby comes out. Angela even slaps her daughter when she realises that Katy's pregnant and she tricked Martin into it. So, I know, was this Tommy's violent streak rubbing off on his wife, or was this just the last straw and something that Angela's been bottling up all this time?
Poor girl.
Tommy... I told you at the beginning this was the story of Tommy and not Angela. But then what has Angela done here? She's just been the long-suffering wife here.
Moved out.
He continues to be hostile towards Martin, who threatens to make Katy cut her family off.
Well, it's not going to be a fun Christmas, is it?
No. And Tommy gets even angrier when Angela lets slip that Katy's failed her exams recently. And then, when a condom that Rosie gave Craig falls out of his pocket... Tommy punches Craig and knocks him out. So he's just punching everyone. He's punching his own son now. And how old was Craig at this point? 14, 15?
Oh dear.
His kind of fairly sturdy dad has punched his own son out. That's going over the line, I'm going to say.
You can't just punch people for
having a condom in your
pocket. For having
pocket.
Contraception.
And the thing with this is, like I said, Rosie and Craig, I don't think were doing it at this point. This condom, Rosie found
You always say it like you're
condom.
like, don't tell anyone.
She found it in Sally's purse because Rosie secretly knew that Sally had been having it off with Ian Davenport at the garage, exactly. So
she's like, here's a souvenir.
Yeah, exactly.
And Craig's like, brilliant.
Just in case.
I'm a goth. That's just what goths have in their pockets.
Tommy blames himself for all of the family problems here. He tries to apologise to Craig.
I think he might be a factor.
Yeah, I think he is. Craig's not having any of this.
Oh.
He don't want his dad's apology. He punched his lights out. He also starts to get suspicious, does Tommy, of Sally when she's weirdly defensive about Rosie even having this condom in the first place. Because obviously Sally's like, this is evidence of my affair with Ian. Let's not do anything about it. Let's definitely don't tell Kevin about this, Tommy, because we wouldn't want him to get too upset about this. And Tommy's like,
if you know this,
it's a father's right to be upset and angry about this. I don't want to deny Kevin of the opportunity here.
He might want to punch somebody.
Exactly.
How can I stand in the way of a man?
Wanting to punch someone.
We're all just waiting for an excuse.
Yeah. So Tommy's suspicions lead him down the alley of, ooh, maybe Sally's having an affair with Martin. He would like any reason to pin something on Martin here. So he thinks that, he says, well, it must be Martin. I mean, he finds out via Angela that Martin and Sally used to have a bit of a thing a couple of years before. They were dating for a little while. And Angela's like, well, I guess they could have rekindled it, but it's probably just your imagination, Tom. Tommy, how does he react to the news that maybe Martin is having it off with Sally? He pushes Martin up against the wall, of course, and says, oi, you cheating on my daughter? Threatens to punch him, break his legs, break his neck, take your pick.
I'll break you from one end to the other.
Yeah, and then once he kind of lets Martin go, he sees him going off to Sally for a supportive hug, which just fuels the fire even more. This was brilliant. The downfall of the Harrises was so brilliantly plotted, and the fact that it tied in to Sally's affair story, which was completely separate, but it was just brilliant. It was so clever, because Angela's in the pub one evening. She overhears Gail telling Sally, look, this sordid affair that you're having, you got to end it. Angela obviously takes that as evidence that Tommy's barking up the absolute right tree. And Martin is having an affair with Sally, and we need to do something about it. So she breaks the news to Katy completely innocently. I mean, she's thinking that Martin's having an affair with Sally. She's not, but she tells Katy, look, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but the father of your child has not been faithful to you. Yeah, so Katy's obviously furious about this, leaves Martin, who's totally bewildered by this whole thing. He's totally innocent in all of this, at least with this part of it. And Katy says, what? I want to have an abortion. So she goes and has this abortion. This was after another fight between Tommy and Martin in the middle of the street. So Katy has her abortion. Not long after it, discovers that Sally's affair isn't with Martin. And she's like utterly heartbroken because she's lost her baby. She's chosen to terminate this pregnancy under the misinformation that Martin is having an affair. He's a cheat. He's not.
And Angela's like, I can't believe this.
Angela is utterly horrified because Katy wouldn't have done this if Angela hadn't told her about this supposed affair. So she's mega guilty about this. Tommy, meanwhile, just brilliant. Well, she's not pregnant with Martin's daughter or a child anymore, so as far as I'm concerned, that's all okay. He's basically gloats about this, and this is what leads to his downfall. One fateful night in the garage, Tommy's there working late, Katy appears at the door. Brilliant framing shot for this epic scene, which, long story short, ends in Tommy being whacked round the head by a wrench by Katy, vengeful Katy, who blames him for everything that's gone wrong with her life and now the death of her unborn child. And the fact that he's there just gloating about it pushes her over the edge. Yeah, whack, down, dead. Just as Angela walks in. It is a brilliant moment.
I like the way you say long story short when we're an hour and 20 minutes into explaining how this guy dies.
Yeah, this is the story of the road to his death. This is it. He has pushed Katy, for the best part of a year now, based on this affair this relationship that she's been having with Martin, and now it's led to the death of her child. So she kills him, and it's not like a premeditated attack. No way did she go there thinking this was going to happen, but he just pushed her too far, and I think he got a taste of his own medicine here, didn't he, Tommy? This had been previewed in the press beforehand. I found an article in The People from December 2004 from my internet searchings saying that Katy was going to stab Tommy. So they had the general direction of it, but I wonder whether originally in the storyline in meetings whether stabbing was ever going to be on the cards, and they thought, no, let's actually have him be clonked over the head with a
wrench.
With a wrench, which is the tool of his trade. But anyway, brilliant episode, and
murdered with apples.
No, I don't think a child's ever given me an apple.
Yes, they did. I know they did once. They? Yeah, I do remember. Oh, okay. I think it was in France.
Oh, there we go. Oh, that didn't count. The follow up from this is absolutely fantastic, and really these two actresses amazing in their cover up.
This was so good
of what happened. It was so good.
Angela just spends the rest of the time she's on the show in a
next
constant
2 months
state of just weeping.
Yeah, well, both of them do.
Red-eyed, sad,
but yet trying to
downtrodden.
keep up appearances to everybody. So she decides that there's no way that Katy, her daughter, is going to go down for this, because, you know, I suppose as parents you are going to feel, even though Angela wasn't the one who was gunning for Martin anywhere near as much as Martin was, she feels like she's partly responsible for the state of affairs here.
Well, she's also thinking, Katy's got a whole life in front of her.
Yeah.
I don't want any, you know, I could... We need to...
This is the ultimate mama bear move here.
Yeah.
So they decide, well, Angela decides, and Katy, who is just beside herself, because she's literally just murdered her own father.
Actress. Both of them,
they were superb here.
Yeah.
They sneak back to the house. Angela concocts a story of what they've been up to that night, so they have to stick to it. She washes their clothes, hides the wrench down the back of the sofa. Let's just pretend it didn't happen. The next morning, again, brilliant episode. Angela has to send Craig off to school.
Oh, God.
Pretending that it's just a normal morning.
This is fascinating, isn't it? Because she's putting everything on the line for Katy, but she obviously must realise that Craig is going to... his father's died, he's the innocent one here.
Yeah.
And she's
going to have to lie to him. That this episode is like, her sending him off to school and then just waiting, knowing that they're going to unlock the garage. Kevin and Tyrone are going to be there. And you have to be just waiting in the wings almost to put on the best dramatic performance of your life.
Yeah.
And if you don't, either you or your daughter is going to be sent down for murder.
It's so well performed.
It was so good.
And
I mean, it was waiting in the wings. This was Angela, who has, as I say, barely done anything for the last few years. So she's not been a bad character. She's just been, you know, keeping it on the down low. But this is where we saw Catherine Hunt at her very, very best. She's
been a supporting character in Tommy's story, and now he's been killed.
Yeah.
Because of his, you know, his actions, really.
So the body is found. Angela, she does, fair play to her, put on this brilliant performance of grief, and she goes there and cradles the body in her arms. And there's obviously an element of acting there, but obviously
she's also crying
because her dead husband is there. And everything has gone wrong. How on earth did it happen to this? She was witness to a murder 3 years ago. Now another one.
It's like she's the problem.
Yeah, to wherever she goes, murders to people just happen to drop down dead. She then has to break it to Craig whilst lying, and Katy, while this is going on, is desperate to confess. She just wants to tell somebody that she did it because this is kind of weighing on her soul. And Angela's like, no, you can't. You have got to stay secret about this for the rest of your life.
Now, what they didn't really think about was, if it wasn't Katy, and it wasn't Angela, and it wasn't Craig, who would be suspected? Who's going to be the one who takes the blame?
Obviously the Morgans. They've got, we had the main ones put away in prison the previous year, but...
Before that, though, who gets arrested? Martin.
Martin, yes.
That makes Katy want to confess again.
Yeah, Martin gets hauled into the police station here because he is the suspect number one, because he didn't see eye to eye with Tommy. I think you kind of got that impression over throughout this episode. and poor Katy's like, I need to protect Martin. And just like, no, he may have to take the hit for this one. It's either him or you. Yep. Martin's release is he's got an alibi or something. It's not him. And Angela says, well, got to be the Morgans then. We've got to be the wider family that take the blame for this. So while this is going on, you still got the murder weapon that needs to be found. The police are sniffing around. You got to get rid of this wrench. So
I can't believe she put it down the back of the sofa.
Why not? Why not? Where would you put it?
I would have wiped my fingerprints off of it and left it there.
The thing is, the police are all around the house during this time. You can't sneak something out of the house. This was the family liaison officer was played by Lisa George during this in her pre-Beth days, and they were constantly there. They were being watched.
They weren't really being watched. They were being supported.
Yes,
and I don't think that they suspected them at all.
No, I don't think they did, especially not at the beginning. So Angela is able to get this wrench out of the house and takes it along to the chapel arrest when they go and see Tommy. And
this was great.
Yeah, the wrench goes in the coffin. Poor Tommy, despite everything that's happened to him, to be buried And it gets taken out a bit later with the thing that was used to kill you. That's harsh. He didn't deserve this. I don't think anybody deserves this. So, but she confesses, Angela does, to Father Thomas at the church, who fair play to him, keeps quiet about it. And she tells Katy, now we need to make sure that Tommy is buried so the wrench isn't found amongst all his ashes. And I don't know whether I'm making this up, but I'm sure there was some kind of conflict about Craig saying, no, he always said that he wanted to be cremated. And they had to be like, no, we want to have him buried because we want him to have a proper grave that we can go and bury, that we can go and visit him at. It's just brilliant, the conundrum that they're putting here.
I don't know enough about what happens to a body and stuff to know whether you can just hide things in the coffin. I guess he's been in. I don't think we embalm people quite the same way as they do in other countries.
Well, I think this is he's had all of his
bits and bobs.
Think he's done.
He's had
with
his brain put in the jar.
Exactly.
Pulled out of his nose with a hook.
He probably didn't even need a hook. It probably just tap on the top of the head and it plops
out
of a nostril.
Apologetically. You found me then.
I was in here somewhere. I've
been here all the time, believe it or not.
This was literally just before the coffin is being sealed.
Because there was definitely a story about that with George and and what's his face talking about sealing. Yeah.
So Angela thinks they got away with it, but she still needs to pin this murder on the Morgans. So she goes to the factory to type out a message on the computer on the street, which is in the factory, saying "you're next." And the idea was that she would post this to herself. And say, oh, it must be the Morgans. But sadly for her, Hayley, remember her? Good old friend Hayley catches her doing it, and now she's dragged into this web of lies. Angela says, look, I know it was the Morgans that did this, but there's no evidence. The only way that we could get them sent down is to fake a letter. And Hayley's like,
oh, okay.
Okay. She's like, oh, you can't do it. You can't do it this way. You got to let the police find it out. And they're like, no, the police aren't going to find it out, but this way. Was that quite a good Hayley, was it? The only way we're going to be able to make sure they go down for sure for this thing that they definitely did is if we send this message. And bless her, Hayley. She goes along with it. Not only does she say, okay, I'll keep it secret, but she actually goes to Sheffield herself to post a letter herself, implicating her somewhat in a quite heinous crime here. But Hayley's a very loyal friend. What can you do?
If I was the Morgans, I wouldn't send it from Sheffield anyway.
Would you not?
No, I think it'd be much scarier to send it from the post box in your road.
Yeah, that's
Didn't
true.
Think of that,
Didn't think of that, but anyway, the letter arrives the next day.
It's
Angela, who is quite the thesp by this point, puts on an amazing show of pure terror in making sure it's in front of as many people at the factory as possible. When she opens up this letter, is like, oh my gosh, they're going to get me.
Was she like, oh everyone, I'm just bringing my post into work
I can't remember how it was.
It's totally normal to open your post in front of all your friends at work.
Anyway, Angela thinks the police are finally starting to take her serious here, but sadly for her, they arrest her on suspicion of Tommy's murder that very day because they found one of her hairs in Tommy's blood.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Surely
you would have your wife's hairs all over you.
Quite possibly. And I think it wasn't. I think they had to say that it wasn't from when she was cradling his body after it because timing, blah blah blah.
I don't believe that.
There's no way out of it. Angela realises she has got no option.
But it wasn't her that did it, so this evidence doesn't make any sense.
She was there still when Katy killed Tommy.
So what she do, like shake her hair in disgust and get hair everywhere?
She was a very frizzy-haired girl. I'm sure it was a lady. I'm sure it was falling out all the time. I think if I was living with all this drama, my hair would be falling out. It's surprising so many people in Coronation Street have got such healthy crops on top of their heads.
Don't give them any ideas. Alopecia storyline coming up for Fizz next year.
Oh no. Anyway, Angela's like, I've got to confess to the murder. I've got to protect Katy. So she does. She says, I did it. I killed him. Katy she gets wind of it and she's like, she killed my dad at the court hearing. And Katy and Craig leave for Sheffield with Angela's dad Keith. Angela is sent down, but not before Katy comes back. We know what happens here. She ends up topping herself. She ends up drinking a load of sugar water and leaving and letting herself die there. Unbeknownst to Angela, though, Katy's left a confession note, which Martin finds, reads to Angela, and Angela's like,
oh no.
It all comes out, the truth comes out. So Angela doesn't go down for murder. She does get 6 to 8 years behind bars,
Do you know why she
for
did?
perverting the course of justice.
No, for littering at a crime scene.
Litter in her hair.
Yeah.
She's sent down for perverting the course of justice. Justice. 6 to 8 years is quite a long time.
I know. I
for
thought you
helping
could do
a
anything you
murderer
wanted.
that was your daughter.
I thought you could do what you wanted in this country now.
She didn't kill him. Anyway,
it's harsh.
It's a cautionary tale for any of us who would also like to support our family members who happen to be found in a compromising situation involving a dead body and a wrench. Don't do it. Just say, sorry. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Anyway, we last see Angela when Craig goes to visit her one day in prison, the last remaining Harris, and Keith, Angela's dad's there saying, I'll look after him, and he does for a bit, and then they get a bit boring, and they bog off back to Sheffield again. Actually, no, I think Craig ends up in Germany, I'm going to say. I think, wasn't it, he goes on holiday to France with Rosie and the Websters, and their plan is to escape to Berlin, and Rosie gets cold feet and Craig goes there himself. I'm sure that's his fate. But anyway, that is the very sticky end of one of Coronation Street's, like you said at the beginning, darkest, most tragic families.
Yep.
And actually, as a beginning, middle and end, maybe they didn't need any more than this. They were on fire for most of that period.
I think I quite like them. This story and this family. Didn't outstay their welcome. Really explosive, very well plotted. It all made sense. All the motivations were there in place for it to happen. Stirred up some of the biggest names on the street because you had Martin Platt and Kevin Webster and Sally and everyone involved in all of this as well, and Rosie with Craig. So I think they did a bloody good job, really.
I think they did. And you sometimes will get, even nowadays, you get characters like Kit, for example, taking up a lot of screen time and immediately going dark and just getting involved in lots of people's business. But having this family was so much more successful.
Well, they also had their own business going on.
Yeah, they had their own business going on. You could totally sympathise with almost everybody in the story. It was just very, very, very well done. And also, it was decided that they were to be axed in January 2004. New producer Tony Wood came in and was like, nah, that family's not working. Get rid of them. It was harsh. It was cutthroat back in the day, wasn't it? These days, if a character or a family aren't working, they say, oh, let's just keep them going for a little bit longer. But this days is like, no, they're out. They still stayed on the show for another year and a bit after this, but the clock was ticking. Within a year and a half of them first appearing on the show. And that was kind of it. I tried to do some digging to find some interviews with Thomas Craig and Catherine Hunt about their time in Coronation Street, but I really couldn't find very much. In 2007...
If you're listening, and you're either one,
yeah,
I'd love to have you on the show.
Craig in 2007 said, I don't think it was busy or hectic. This was him talking about... He was kind of being a bit critical here of Coronation Street stars who say it's really, really tough working on Coronation Street. And he said, no, it wasn't. You might have a week or 2 weeks where you're busy and then you got 2 weeks off. Corrie had 55 regulars in the cast. 55 people aren't busy every day, are they? And he also said, I used to watch Corrie all the time before I was in it, and now I know everybody. I'd never watch it. So
it's obviously not as hard as plumbing.
Clearly not. But anyway, I don't know, because he and I don't think Catherine's really said very much at all publicly about Coronation Street. Tell me if I'm wrong. But yeah, that was kind of it really, and they just went back into, the characters went into obscurity again. And Catherine Hunt, for her part,
you mean the actors?
No, the characters. The characters did. Like they just
nobody talks about them now.
Nobody talks about the Harrises anymore. But yeah, Catherine Hunt. We do, for sure. We had lovely Lucy Jo Hudson on the podcast last year. Catherine Hunt had a couple of small roles after Coronation Street. She was in Waterloo Road, Holby City Doctors. Most of them were kind of single.
Why doesn't Waterloo Road ever get in soap things?
What do you mean?
Well, because how is it different from Casualty?
I don't know. You interrupt my flow. Yeah, her last appearance was an episode of Casualty in 2014, and yeah, I think she's retired now. A couple of years ago, she made it into the papers. She's got she's very, very different looking. She's got very short, cropped, very grey or silvery hair now, and you'd barely recognise her. But yeah,
there was the front page.
There was an article that a Coronation Street fan had discovered her, and he took a selfie with her. So if you want to know what Angela Harris might be looking like now, were she to come back to Coronation Street, do a little Google and you'll be able to find out. Thomas Craig, meanwhile, has had a massive post-Corrie career. He has been 68 episodes of Where the Heart Is. But his most successful show has been Murdoch Mysteries. He has clocked up already over 300 episodes of this crime drama, this Canadian crime drama. It's been going since 2008, and he's just been a regular on this ever since. It's a historical Canadian police show, and yeah. So if you're ever missing a bit of Tommy Harris, then you can see what he's up to next. And really, Coronation Street. I don't know whether it's fair to say he'll mostly be remembered for Coronation Street, because I don't think anybody in this country watches that.
I've never heard of it.
I'd never heard of it as well, but it must be quite the big thing if it's been going since 2008, and he was in 238 episodes of Coronation Street, 300 plus of this. I think, Coronation Street is the bigger programme, but it's nice to know that somebody has gone on from a relatively minor part in Coronation Street to have a really big career.
This is really interesting. I'm just looking this up. Murdoch Mysteries. It takes place in Toronto in 1895. The main character is Detective William Murdoch, but there are 3 other main characters, and Thomas Craig plays Inspector Brackenreed, and there's also a character called Dr. Julia Ogden.
Oh, interesting. That's your Corrie link for you. Yeah, I read a few little interviews about him talking about that, and apparently the character gets promotion over the series, and you get to see him romancing and then later wedding his significant other. And yeah, I don't know. Do any of our Canadian listeners watch this? What's he like on it? Is he anything like Tommy Harris?
It says he is a blunt and sceptical Yorkshireman with a fondness for whiskey who prefers conventional methods of detection over Murdoch's eccentric methods.
Oh, well, there we go.
Renegade.
Yeah.
Renegade cop versus traditional Yorkshireman.
So, at long last, we finally finished our character profile of Tommy and Angela.
I enjoyed that. That was fun.
It was good. They are. I think it's because they're underrated characters.
And really, I know it was 2 characters in one, so it kind of fills the time a bit more, but really they fit so much into the very brief period of time. We've been talking for a long time about their story, but it really was, there was lots of interesting stuff that happened in it, and lots of other, like I said, big main characters. And I do think that it kind of changed the trajectory of Martin's character quite a lot.
Yeah,
this story.
Well, yeah, definitely.
And not very many sort of new brief characters or families can ever say that. I mean, think of the Mortons.
Yeah, the Mortons came next at number 6,
have we done a Morton family?
Yeah, we just bundled the whole of the Mortons together in a character
They
profile.
didn't really change anybody.
No, I don't think they had the lasting impact. As I said, Harris
Martin's
maybe
got
didn't
it
have
now.
a huge impact, but
at the time, massive.
I think kind of you lump together the Mortons and the Harrises together, and actually that is doing the Harrises a disservice. And I wasn't a fan of the Mortons. I didn't really like any of them. Craig was okay, maybe, but that was a bit of a flip. Sorry, what was his name? Daryl.
Yeah, Daryl. I know, this is what I get confused.
So I literally do it now. I mixed them up.
I forget which child is in which family.
The Harrises for me are far more successful a family.
What's the girl from the Mortons?
There was Mel. There was Jodie.
Mel is kind of visually reminiscent of Katy.
Yeah, it felt like they wanted to.
They were like, we should have got rid of them.
Shouldn't have killed them all off, really.
Why don't we just bring back their doppelgangers?
Yeah. Anyway, I think, after all this time, I think we've done enough. There's more that we could talk about them, but
well, I know.
We need to have our tea.
Yeah.
We've got lovely turkey meatloaf for dinner tonight, haven't we?
It doesn't sound nice, but it is really nice.
Gemma makes very nice meatloaf, but I did notice a pan of courgettes also on the hob.
Sorry,
so,
Mum and Dad brought me some courgettes, but can I just give a quick
too impressed with
shout out here to the recipe with Kenji and Dad, because that's where I got the turkey meatloaf recipe from.
Okay. Tell you what, bet Tommy Harris never ate a courgette in his life.
No.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
And he did all right. Look
at him now.
Look at him now.
Maybe you need to have
solving
one for power.
crimes in Toronto in 18, whenever
You
it
went
is
back in
said.
time.
Anyway, we're blathering.
enough.
There's enough waffling. Time to go. Thank you everybody so much for listening. Hopefully we've got some other Tommy and Angela fans out there, and maybe we've made a few converts, or people thinking, I've not actually seen any of them. Might fancy watching that storyline. It's there on YouTube, I'm sure. Anyway,
Bye.
time to go. Bye.